Edition of Soccer Wise. We got a special show for you today. And yes, as you're hearing my voice first, Tom Boger, that means that David Goss is not here. It is the holiest of days on Yom Kippur, which means he's atoning for his sins, as he likes to put it himself. So I just assume top of the list there, a lot of time spent mentally is him deciding to start a podcast with me and what was he thinking and how did we get here. So David Goss, we miss you. I'll talk to you soon. Don't text me again today. You're supposed to be away from your phone. I hope I didn't just get him in trouble with any family members. But we got a ton to talk about. It's October. The calendars shift. There's so much going on in the world of U.S. soccer. Nashville SC won the U.S. Open Cup last night. Their first ever trophy. What a night. We're going to dive into that. Also, the Vancouver Whitecaps won their fourth straight Canadian championship as Thomas Mueller hit a milestone both in terms of club trophies and goals scored, while Ryan Gauld, more importantly, returned from injury. MLS, who insists they love the Open Cup oh so very much, and they're doing everything they possibly can to support it, also scheduled the Campeones Cup last night. And we're going to have our complete coverage, and it's this. Toluca beat the Galaxy 3-2. Congratulations. Anyway, the playoffs are almost here, and to step into David Goss's huge chair, not in the literal sense, but in the figurative sense, is my man Joe Lowery. Backheeled.com. I hope you guys all subscribe to it. Joe does Backheeled, and then he does everything else. So he's a very close friend, but I guess technically a competitor when you work everywhere else. I probably shouldn't be making jokes about overexposure, so probably gonna look really dumb here. But Joe's here. He's got his most important 2025 MLS takes. We'll touch on the U.S. men's national team roster that dropped today. But Joe, I got one question for you. What's up, brother?
Hey, what's up, Tom? It is great to be here. Goss's chair is comfy. There's like the spring that's loose in like sort of my left side here, but we'll get that fixed. I'll talk to David. I do very much appreciate that. Yeah, you're in a glass house talking about me doing everything. You're doing everything, man. It is great to be here. Great to chat with you.
Yeah, I'm 2 days removed from chugging a glass of milk on morning footy with Jack Mayer and then
that was
spiking
good.
the cup.
That was a good save.
Like
I bet Jack Mayer regrets ever the milk thing going public. Like that's my suspicion.
I was a little bit worried because I was kind of talking to because this is just like MLS sicko lore. Like I didn't expect anybody else to know it, and so then like they were doing more research into that. So that was kind of a little bit of a theme throughout the interview, and I was like, man, I don't know, like I didn't know Jack like personally or anything. Like I've heard a lot of good things about him from teammates and coaching staff, and I was like, what if he just thinks we're making a joke? And he was really good on that interview. He was really funny. And when I was chugging, like when I watched the video back, because when I was chugging, I was just focused on the task at hand.
Yeah,
I just heard him go, "Hell yeah, Tom!"
Was it so? What percent milk are we talking? Like, was this whole milk? Because chugging that's not easy, dude.
I think it was 2%.
All right, classic.
The production assistant handed it to me when we were on set, and I was like, I know what I'm doing. Claudia, I don't blame her. I wouldn't want her to try to chug that. So that's how that went. But yeah, Nashville SC, they won the Open Cup last night. It was, again, a really busy Wednesday night with three trophies on the line. Two trophies on the line.
Yeah.
Kidding. And the Vancouver Whitecaps are going to get to that in a second. So, but first, let's go with Nashville SC. They beat Austin 2-1. There was a little bit of refereeing controversy. I know the Austin FC fans would certainly say that. Joe, I don't want to start there. I want to start elsewhere. The game ends 2-1. Sam Surge scores the winner from the penalty spot. Hani Mukhtar scores the first goal. Very poetic that these are the two goal scorers in the win. Mirto Uzuni scored for Austin. Austin, I thought, played more expansive. I knew that they played well. I knew that they played hard. They played more expansive, and they were more of a threat going forward than I thought they were. But unfortunately for them, wasn't enough. Nashville win 2-1. Joe, what were your biggest thoughts on the final?
Yeah, Nashville deserved winners of this game. I think even with some of the refereeing question marks, I thought Nashville did enough to win this game. And really, the big picture takeaway, I think, is that this is Nashville getting a well-deserved trophy as a club, but mostly for what they've done in 2025. The East is so scary this year that if Nashville and the West would be talking about them more, first of all, and they would be a legit MLS Cup contender, whereas in the East they still are, but the road is so much more difficult to get there. So they may not get to MLS Cup. They won't get to the Shield at this point. We know that already. Mm-hmm. This was their chance, their best chance to win a trophy this year, and credit to them, right? They took this competition seriously. Nice that they actually got to be in the Open Cup, unlike a bunch of other teams. I liked your little jab earlier at MLS there. But this was a fitting set of circumstances for Nashville to lift this trophy because they've been really good this year. They've got the third best expected goal differential in MLS this year. They've been up near the top in that ranking all year long. They play some really effective soccer. And what they've done, what BJ Callahan has done, is really impressive to me. And it's not just BJ, it's also the front office and Mike Jacobs refreshing this roster in a way that has panned out a lot better than I thought it would. I didn't think Nashville were going to be very good this year. And it's a credit to basically everybody there that they have been. I loved, Tom, first of all, CBS going a lot for this game on the broadcast side of things. That was really cool to see. I loved BJ on the desk pitch side before the game started. I think it was Charlie maybe who asked him about Sam Surridge and how he's been so good this year and what those conversations have been like to get him to this level. And I loved BJ Callahan's response to that. It was, we went through and watched a lot of his best moments. We watched a lot of his tape and tried to figure out where we could use him to get the most out of him. And it sounds like they decided we want to play him off the left in a front two. And obviously that's what they've done all year long. And Surridge has thrived in that role. It's been the best that we've seen from him in his entire career. Mukhtar has been every bit the player that we know he can be. And building a system around those two guys has been so effective, and it paid off yesterday.
Yeah, our guy Ben Wright, who was in Austin covering the game, please read everything that comes out from him. But he identified this himself at some point, I think the middle of last year, about like there is a Sam Surridge trademark goal. It is in that inside left channel with his right foot going to the far post. And BJ Callahan identified that. All right, let's get our best players in their best spots. I talk about this with coaching all of the time where, like, Wilfred Nancy is one brand of brilliance. The way that their intricate game model, everything, the bravery that comes with that. You look at him, and again, first of all these coaches, we all know they know much more about soccer than we do. But like Wilfred Nancy, it's like it almost feels intimidating. It's just like I'm obviously an idiot. Like, and BJ Callahan, like obviously it's a different brand of brilliance where like, man, just put your best players in the best positions to succeed. And another quote from BJ that came from the game after the game. He was asked about tactics, and it was like, hey, like you draw everything up, like what were the adjustments? How does it go? And like, did what you envision this game going? Did it kind of go that way? Was the sentiment of the question? And I loved his answer. He just goes, listen, like we set the foundation, or we try to set the foundation, but like my voice is coarse because we were on the sideline just supporting them and what we could. The players go on the field. The players win the game, and like I think that's so valuable when a coach is so clearly and so genuinely. No, it's all them. Like tactics, yeah. I try to do it, but like that's a small part. Like no. Like Hani Mukhtar scored a goal because it was a special sequence and a little great deft assist from Schaufelberg. Like like maybe BJ could have drawn that up, but I just think it's great when coaches kind of go out of the way and you can tell when something's perfunctory and you can tell when something's like genuine. And I don't know. I think the man management side of BJ, it's so clear why the players love him and why they'll run through a wall for him, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure this is true for you, Tom. I've never heard a bad thing about BJ Callahan. No. Like it seems like everybody loves him, and he seems like a really affable guy all the way across the board from the moments I've talked to them in the past. You look at this Nashville team, and it's like, I love what you said there, Tom. For me, this is a things can be two things situation where it is absolutely true, fundamentally, a truth of the sport, that the players win games. Like the players have the lion's share of the impact. And BJ Callahan is wise to recognize that because that's just how the sport works. And even Wilfred Nancy would recognize that, right?
Yeah.
But it's also true. Like everything you said is true. It's also true that opening goal sequence is very Nashville. Like is very much part of BJ Callahan's identity where it's Surridge pulling off the left. And where is so much of the chance creation for Nashville come this year? It's come through the wide areas, which seems maybe a bit counterintuitive given they play that 4-2-2. Yeah. But then outside of Surridge and Mukhtar, for me, when I think about what's made this team so good, it's the outside backs. It's Lovitz getting forward down the left. It's Nahar getting forward down the right. And I was worried that Nahar wasn't going to be able to continue in this game after he goes down early, kind of holding his arm. He does end up continuing. Those two guys and their ability to play make is so special when you marry that with having two elite, best-in-class forwards. Nashville, again, I didn't think they were totally at their best in this game. A little sloppy. The penalty that's conceded from Schwacke is unfortunate, but he ends up making amends for it, and so that all turns out fine. And they did need a little bit of help from the referee crew to go and make this thing and really claim that 2-1 win. But it's deserved, man. Like, there's just no way you can look at this and say that they don't deserve to win this trophy.
Before we get to kind of some of those smaller details or the refereeing decisions, I think we're going to disagree. I want to talk big picture for Nashville. This team has been among the most competitive and the most successful expansion builds in league history, straight up. They are one of 5 teams in league history to make the playoffs in 5 of their first expansion seasons. The Sounders had the crazy Open Cup runs. I think that they won 3 of their first 4. All of those trophies, like, again, that's elite. What LAFC has done. NYCFC kind of after their first year. Chicago 98, like, yeah, the whole league was an expansion league at that point. So it's a little bit different. Yeah. In modern MLS to do what they've done, it's really awesome and fitting for them to win this trophy. They got to the Leagues Cup final. I thought they were better than Miami And they lost that game. And nobody cares if you think that they were better or not, because they lost the game. And they'll be the first to tell you that. What I love so much about this team, and what I think is going to get more and more credit now, particularly as we look back, one of the best expansion builds ever, straight up. Like, they signed Hani Mukhtar. It was like $2.8 million. He's been one of the best signings in the last decade, 2 decades, like straight up. Hani Mukhtar was day one. Jack Mayer was day one. Walker Zimmerman was day one. Joe Willis, Dan Lovitz. I think Dax McCarty, I don't know if they do rings or medals for this. Dax McCarty should get one. Dax McCarty should get something. He was so important. Anibal Godoy, honestly, too. These two players were so important, and Nashville were deliberate with that. Nashville were deliberate on the culture setters. That's why Dax was so important to them, outside of how great he is on the field. It was about what he did in the locker room. So you look at what Mike Jacobs and this front office has done, and the front office has changed a little bit, but Jacobs is still there. Some people from his executive tree had moved on to DC United and elsewhere, but what this group has done hasn't gotten enough credit yet, because while they were successful, they weren't a whole lot of fun to watch under Gary Smith, which is a trade-off they took 10 out of 10 times, until they weren't successful. They've refreshed the group. BJ Callahan, a great hire, very obviously. Sam Surridge, they got that DP forward, right? They tweaked the roster, they overturned it, but the core of this team remains from the 2020 season. In world soccer, full stop, that's rare. Yeah. In MLS, that's rare, because you have a quandary of, if you're really good, you usually move on or go somewhere else. And if you're not good, you need to overturn the roster. So the continuity in this team, and again, this is one of the best expansion builds ever.
Yeah, 100% agree. And one skill that we see from MLS front office types that I think really differentiates some from others is the ability to build on the initial build. I'm just going to say build 100 times in the next minute or so. It's the ability to have that first roster and maintain success. And it hasn't been all roses for Nashville, to be clear. But they've been more good than bad, and this is the best version of them so far. What I find so appealing about what Nashville have done is they recognize that where they were before, yes, it was good. It was even maybe a little better than good, but it wasn't enough. And they saw when it was obvious that the Gary Smith project wasn't working anymore. It was time to move on. And they iterated on that to go and have the level of success that they're having now, where it is those pieces that you mentioned, and then it is going out and signing Andy Nahar and having a perfect idea of how they wanted to use him that maximized all of his strengths. It's going out and adding Eddie Tagseth and Patrick Gosbeck to be really useful pieces for them in the middle of midfield. And oh, by the way, we'll go get a Gaston Brugman to fit in that group as well. There are just so many hits when it comes to this roster. And again, I was a doubter of all of this. We didn't really know what BJ Callahan was going to bring at this level. We didn't know how some of these pieces were going to translate. Hani Mukhtar had not been anywhere near his best.
Right.
Surridge looked like a good MLS player, but not like a really good MLS DP. So it's a credit to Nashville in this entire group that they have managed to build on top of what they already had to not just get them back to the level where they were before things kind of went downhill under Gary Smith, but to push them even above that line. Super impressive to me.
Yeah, it's very difficult to move around eras, and again, particularly with the philosophical change that this coaching staff implemented, and you saw it took a while last year. They were playing some better ball, but they weren't getting results, and really, they were playing better ball kind of in the middle third, which is the least valuable of the thirds when it comes to soccer. So we weren't sure this at the beginning of the season, hey, is this going to be another year thing? Is this going to be a transition year? Well, it isn't. Everything's kind of went up for Nashville. They're a really strong team in the Eastern Conference. Like you said, it's funny when you see, if they were in the Western Conference. Well, this is one of the teams that is snip-snapped between conferences. So maybe in another world they would be in the Western Conference like they were a couple years ago. But in the game, we're going to get to Austin as well, but I have to talk about the refereeing decisions. So I'll let you go first. First of all, there was the Austin penalty that Uzuni didn't score, and then obviously the decisive Sam Surridge penalty. What were your thoughts on those two?
So kind of you, Tom, to let me go first on refereeing decisions. Wow, I mean, that is just what a gracious host you are. I thought the penalty.
Didn't want to taint the jury pool.
No, I get that. I thought the penalty conceded by Brian Schwacke was a penalty. There was enough contact there. It wasn't, I'm going to clatter through this dude. But there was enough there for me. And in my view on the Danny Pereira penalty concession, Soccerwise guest, friend of the program, Danny Pereira, so I want to be gracious, is that when you wrap around a guy in the box, you invite that decision. Is it something that we see called often? No, it is not. If we were to see that kind of call made on every single corner, there would be a penalty on 7 out of 10 corner kicks. At the same time, I really do believe that if you go and wrap somebody up even lightly and they go down, you have left yourself culpable for a decision like that to be made. Is it frustrating, and would I be frustrated if I was an Austin fan? Yes. Is it also true that they weren't so blindingly good in this game that they it's not like Austin were so amazing in this game that if that call hadn't gone against them, that they were definitely going to win. So for me, I would be frustrated a little bit if I was an Austin fan, but I think both calls were correct at the end of the day.
I do, and I feel pretty strongly, actually. So I would push back on the idea that, I understand that there's grappling on every corner kick. Well, when you're behind the player that you have your arms wrapped around and the ball is within playing distance of the player that you're pulling, it's a penalty. And I don't think that happens on every corner, particularly, again, where the ball is delivered. But the most damning point is before that corner was taken, Danny Pereira they stopped the play before the corner came in for Tori Penzo to tell Danny Pereira, get your hands off of him. I'm watching. She did what she could to avoid the situation. I'm certain that she didn't want to be the story of the game. No referee does. She said literally, don't do this. 3 seconds later, he did the same exact thing. And give Palacios credit. If you're grappling kind of chest to chest or face to, like if you're looking at each other, then I would have said it's soft. Palacios got around him, and Danny's behind him and grapples him. Maybe you could say it's soft. You could say maybe he went down a little bit too easy. That's a 10 out of 10 penalty for me.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I don't really disagree. The point I'm trying to make is that we see a lot of grappling on a lot of corner kicks.
That's fair.
The context you added there, Tom, of Tori Penzo having this exact discussion before the moment happens, and I think Tony Miola, or I don't know if it was Whitty, one of those guys called this out on the broadcast at the time as, hey, this conversation just happened and the foul gets called. I think it's completely understandable. Like, it is, for me, it is not maybe quite as egregious as you landed, but ultimately we agree. Like, this call was entirely reasonable. It was, I think it was fair at the end of the day. And if you're an Austin fan, yeah, you're miffed because you can point to a bunch of contact on a bunch of corners against you all season long because that's how soccer works. But really, I think it's a little hard to argue your way out of this.
Yeah, but I will say for Austin, I thought that they played well. You look at there was game states that came into this, but I was shocked to see them win the possession battle. I was shocked to see them outshoot Nashville. Again, Nashville was playing with the lead for most of the first half, and then again the last 30 minutes. So the game states are a big factor here, but they were expansive. I thought Bukhari was a handful, and this is the Usman Bukhari story. Like, he's a nightmare to deal with. And then the final third, it's
in a straight line, he's terrifying, man. Like, if soccer was played like just forward and backwards, that dude's unstoppable.
But he did get to the end line a few times. It was, if he had a left foot, I think it'd be better. But like, again, I thought he was good on this game. Like, good, not great. And I think that's one of the differences. Like, they spent $7 million on him too. And like, I'm not even trying to necessarily be critical of him. I don't think he was the reason that they didn't win. But on one end, Sam Surge and Hani Mukhtar score in special moments. On the other one, Uzuni did get his goal. He missed a penalty, and Usman Bukhari had plenty of chances, created plenty of danger, and it didn't come off. But I will say for Austin, hold their head up high. I thought they played well. I thought they were a deserving finalist. Going on the road and beating Minnesota United. I know that they've had San Jose fans. If they're here, we're going to hear about them getting past San Jose. But Austin, again, I can't take anything away from them on this day. And if it went the other way, if either the penalty didn't get called, or maybe if Uzuni hit his penalty early in the game, or Bukhari, like, I wouldn't be sitting here being like, wow, I can't believe Nashville didn't win. I would be saying, hey, Austin, we're deserved champions. So I thought that game was a lot of fun last night. Possibly the funnest of them all is Sam Surge getting the dumbest, most hilarious red card I've ever seen because he didn't know he got a yellow card for a clear yellow card offense. And he told the broadcast after the game, he's like, I honestly didn't know I had a yellow card, which was clear based on his reaction.
Yep.
BJ Callahan was on Morning Footy with us today, and I asked him, and he just starts laughing. He goes, yeah, those conversations after the game were a little bit more fun because we won.
Well, didn't Surge say after the game basically like, I was just biting my nails for the last however much time was left in that game, like 30 seconds. I was just living in fear, hoping that it wasn't going to come back and bite us. So funny.
And hang on. And so I understand the wasting time and stuff. If Austin scored, so not just a red card, they took off Hani Mukhtar too.
Right.
This could have been 2-2 in extra time. Teal Bunbury leading the line with nobody else.
First of all.
Down playing with 10 men, like. Oh my God! Like I'm glad that Sam did say that. Sam Surge said that. Of like, oh man, look, I was worried. But yeah. Any parting thoughts on Austin?
Austin, for me, I respected how Nico Estevez approached this game in terms of his lineup. Where over the weekend against RSL, a game that they lose and did not play well in, he rotated to have fresh legs for this game. I'm not a big believer in this Austin build or what's happening there. this was their best chance to win a trophy. I don't know that next year is going to look super great for them. But the good news for Austin is that the West is really bad. So you're still in the mix of things. Like, this season is not done for you. And the way that they're built lends, I think, to pulling off some upsets in the postseason. But I would be really bummed if I was an Austin fan, because you are within an inch of a trophy, and I don't really know when you're going to be back there.
That's fair. I will say on the positive note that I think it's a successful season for Austin. First year under Nico Estevez, you lose Brandon Vasquez to a torn ACL. He's trying to make pieces fit that don't totally fit, right? Like the Uzuni Vasquez fit was always going to be a little bit awkward, and kind of same thing with Bukhari. It's like, all right, well, if you play 4-for-2, do you put a $7 million player at wingback to play 3-5-2? I don't know, right? Like, there was a lot of, again, philosophical questions with the build up, with the roster build, and I think a lot of people were critical of the Nico Estevez hire. I know the Austin fans didn't love it, and they're not the most expansive and the most exciting team, but look, they get to an Open Cup final, and they're a playoff team, and I think for year one, that's a success.
Yeah, I mean, fine. I guess I don't have a lot of juice for that, like that as a take. But I think the better question is, what's next? Like, what is this leading towards? And my personal viewpoint is, I don't have a lot of confidence that this year is going to build this great foundation for Austin next year. I like Brandon Vasquez as a player. I don't love him for what they spent, and I don't even really love him as a DP, frankly. Seems like a nice dude. Great haircut at the moment. Good stash as well. Like, I was loving the fit yesterday. I just don't see Austin with their primary playmaker as Owen Wolff, who's a good young player, by the way, but he's not a primary playmaker. I just don't see that ballooning into something that's going to make them a really scary team next year. But maybe I'm wrong. Like, I would love to be wrong, and I don't enjoy rubbing salt in the wound for Austin after last night.
Calling it as he sees it. Also last night, the Vancouver Whitecaps, 4th straight Canadian championship. They beat Vancouver FC 4-2. Good on Vancouver FC for getting some dangerous attacks and scoring a couple goals. Yeah, I don't know if you saw the Vancouver FC lineup, but I just need to...
There's some names.
Just the dudes naming dudes here. I like Mesquita, Mbange, O'Connor. It's just, I don't know. That made me smile when looking back at this game.
I was standing in my kitchen last night. Like, I needed to go to bed, but I was like looking for a snack, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna just stand here and scroll on my phone for a few seconds while I decide whether or not I want to get a snack. And I look at this game. I didn't get a chance to watch this game. I saw the highlights.
Yeah,
I look at the lineup of this game for Vancouver FC, and it was just one of those eye-catching names after the next. I saw one, I was like, oh, that's got to be the last one. Then I saw the next one. It was so good, and it wasn't just like, oh, I know this name. It was, I know this name. Why on earth do I know this name? What is the connection? Yeah, this is a great guys naming dudes 11.
But that wasn't the story. The story was the Vancouver Whitecaps. Again, 4th straight Canadian championship. Congratulations to them. More importantly, as weird as that says to say about a trophy, more importantly, Ryan Gold is back. Ryan Gold came back for the first time since March 8th. He scores off the bench. Thomas Mueller scored as well. It was his 35th trophy, his 300th career goal. What a night. Could not have gone more perfect for the Vancouver Whitecaps.
Yeah, huge. I mean, the Mueller thing is a fun anecdote. The Gold thing is obviously the huge story, and you already said that. It would have been important for Vancouver regardless to get Ryan Gold back just in time for the playoffs, and who knows, I would be a little surprised if he starts a game before the playoffs.
Yeah, interesting.
I mean, he only comes off the bench in the last 10, 15 minutes of this game, scores a goal, all that is fun. But to get him back in this moment for Vancouver is huge. Like they have been, along with Columbus, those guys have been bitten by the injury bug for longer and harder than any other team in MLS. And Minnesota maybe have like something of a shout there with the timing of some of their absences. Mm-hmm. But Vancouver, to be missing as many pieces as they are all across the field, it's massive. It's absolutely massive for them. And I don't know exactly how all this fits together for Jesper Sorensen. I do know that Jesper Sorensen's a really smart guy and that he's got a plan for how this is going to fit together with Mueller and Gold being on the field together, even if we still got a little while to wait. But man, they just need bodies. Like, they need difference-making, starting-level bodies. They really need that at center back, but that's not going to be Ryan Gauld's purview. But still, to get Gauld back now in the moment that they're in health-wise is even bigger than it would be in any other situation.
Ali Ahmed was man of the match, and every time you think he hits a ceiling, he finds another floor.
Yeah.
I don't have a great analysis to add beyond that other than I'm just very impressed, and what a player he is. But back kind of with Gauld, like, the long-term fit here, and again, hopefully we see as much as we can in going towards the playoffs and as much fitness as he can without kind of overloading and risking any injuries. Like, the fit's going to be good because Ryan Gauld, the working man's MVP candidate, that dude, like, you don't have to worry about him and Mueller trying to operate the same spaces because Gauld's work rate is so high and Mueller's intelligence is so high that I'm just thrilled that we get to see it this season and whatever semblance it's going to be.
Yeah.
You talk about the back line stuff. I know Blackman's out as well, but Blackman is a defender of the year candidate. He's going to be on my top 3. We'll do a show obviously by the end of the season when I kind of really dive in and finalize what my end of year picks are. But like they've still been good, like even without Ranko Veselinovic, which is a very, very difficult task. So the Whitecaps have qualified for the CONCACAF Champions Cup again. I want to read a couple Mueller quotes. This guy,
Please.
I'm so happy he's in MLS, man. I really like. I was thinking that when the potential signing was happening, when it was Cincy, when it was somebody else. This guy's a really fun guy. He's really great. But like, the eyes are on Son or Griezmann or whatever. I'm so happy that this character is in the league. He's just, he was asked about like, hey, you won your 35th major trophy. And he immediately goes, no, I just felt about winning the Canadian Championship. It's not about me. It's a nice number, whatever. I'm with the boys. I'm with the crowd. Hell yeah. The next question was, well, qualifying for the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Did that play a factor? The question, did that play a factor in coming, like to the Vancouver Whitecaps?
Oh yeah.
It just goes, it was not on my horizon. I was more looking to the future and how good this team is to compete in the playoffs. That's what. Yeah, but I'm happy that I'm in the competition next year. It's probably turn to the PR people. Like, what the hell? Wait, what? Wait, where's our first game? Wait, our first game is 4 weeks before the MLS regular season starts next year. What's going on?
Get juiced, Thomas. Get juiced, man.
And I even forgot kind of like, again, like we think about the CONCACAF Champions Cup plenty, but I was just thinking about the trophy rather than deducing, oh my God, yeah, we get Thomas Mueller going to Costa Rica or Honduras or Mexico, whatever. Man, like this is going to be electric. So congratulations to Vancouver Whitecaps. Again, they did it 4th year in a row. They kind of slipped out of the Shield race, which with all of the injuries, I don't blame them in any bit. No. This has been the best season in club history. Partly even just not selling the team to anybody that you're worried about moving it, right? Like this is one of the most pleasant, positive, happy surprises of the MLS 2025 season. And they pick up a trophy again. Any more thoughts on Vancouver, Joe?
No, I mean, I think you nailed it. I'm stoked to see Gald and Mueller together. I think this fit is fairly simple. They'll probably both be in the half spaces for Jesper Sorensen. Mm-hmm. This seems great. I want to see them as close to full strength as they can get, and I think they're a legit threat for MLS Cup if they get at least a couple of pieces even beyond Gald back and healthy.
I would agree. Testament to the depth and testament to Jesper Sorensen for his job. I think he's the favorite for Coach of the Year. It's him, Mikey Varas. There's Eric Ramsey's in the mix there. There's a lot to choose from. But what a story Vancouver have been this season, and they go into the playoffs looking to get further than they have in previous years. So let's get to the latest news. We'll open the ice cream shop here. First, we'll start with an official piece of news. Sporting Kansas City hires David Lee to be their new CSO. He leaves NYCFC. And he signs a 7-year deal with Sporting Kansas City, which definitely made the rounds with sources. Like, of course, congratulations to him. He earned it. Okay, I might need to ask for a 7-year deal now myself. I didn't know that option was on the table. David Lee, I think he is one of the best CSOs in this league. What happens with City Football Group, NYCFC, is we tend to give the credit to the organization and to the scouting network, to just the entity that is City Football Group, and we kind of anonymize the head coach, particularly the front office. Hey, this U23 South American player, it's like Taddy Castellanos broke through in terms of like being a star, but Dave Lee has been with this club since day one. He was lower down the ranks in their inaugural season. He gets to be Claudio Reyna's number 2, and when Claudio Reyna leaves for Austin FC after 2019, David Lee takes over as CSO. Since he's been CSO, no team has won more points than NYCFC. Right now, they are set up very well. They are about to get their new stadium. David Lee, I think, has earned more, I guess, more credit than he's getting. And just a couple more points here is like, we talk about the scouting network and everything. And yes, like that is important. When City Football Group was expanding their network and moving some scouts around, I know for a fact, I think it was either 23 or 24, one winter when they had a lot to do, they didn't essentially have any scouts dedicated just to NYCFC. It was a point of transition within City Football Group where some NYCFC scouts were moving to different City Football Group teams. And when the musical chairs were done spinning, the middle of the offseason, NYCFC didn't have a ton of support staff there. So that's something that I don't think people really recognize, that like David Lee isn't just an empty suit for City Football Group. Like, I think this is a really great hire for Sporting Kansas City.
Yeah, Tom, that insight is fascinating, and that's the piece that I've been missing, and I think everybody's been wondering since this hire came out. You see NYCFC and someone associated with them, and there's been a lot of success as you outlined, but it's not clear like who gets credit for what inside of CFG. One thing I've been thinking about is if I was a Sporting Kansas City fan, I would be excited about this hire. I put this out on social media, wrote it for Backheeled. Like, I would be pleased with this hire, even with some of the question marks of exactly how the credit gets apportioned. But one thing I've been thinking about is Khalid Al-Ahmad and the success that he's had with Minnesota United after being inside of CFG. It's just a name, right? It's a name inside of an organization. There's a lot of names, some more qualified than others inside of CFG. But I mean, if I'm an SKC fan, that fact alone, seeing what's happened in Minnesota, makes me smile thinking a little bit about this. Can I ask you a question, Tom?
Yeah.
Because NYCFC, for as good as they've been, they've left meat on the bone when it comes to their roster builds, right? They have been one of the youngest teams in MLS year after year after year. They're inside the top 10 youngest teams this year, which is older than they've been relative to the competition over the last several years. They didn't replace Santi Rodriguez back in the primary transfer window earlier this year. They have spent a lot of money on a lot of young players and had, I think, an appropriate level of success, maybe even a little better than appropriate level of success with those players. Okay. But how much of that, I assume a lot, but how much of that is CFG directed for how they want NYCFC to operate within their structure? And how much of, especially the Santi thing, is the front office from what you know?
A lot of the City Football Group stuff, to the point where my understanding is that Nico Fernandez, at the grand old age of 25, that was a fight to be able to sign him and not another U21 player.
Right.
That's my understanding, at least. And again, maybe that's creative, but you look at their transfer history. I don't know. We'll see with David Lee at Sporting Kansas City what he does with their third DP spot, what he does with their U22 slots, what he does with the head coach. And I think we'll be able to see patterns. I'm sure that they're still going to sign young players like any other team, but I doubt that it's going to be some sort of U23 manifesto and that's it, right. and that's all, because there are different ways to win in this league, and NYCFC did it this way. Well, part of that was Tati Castellanos coming on a really team-friendly deal, but that was a great signing. They had Maxi Morales in his prime when they won MLS Cup. Maxi Morales is still here, right? So I think we're going to see that, but that's definitely a CFG directive. Obviously, something that David Lee and that you don't, if you don't buy into it, you don't work for that organization. I do want to be clear. But I know that Nick Cushing getting fired was not a popular decision. Not a popular decision within that organization, and that seems to have worked out as well. Joe, when you look at Kansas City, is it the obvious names that you think that you'd build around if you're kind of in David Lee's shoes, looking and assessing this roster and moving forward? It's Joveljic, Manu Garcia, Jake Davis, Jacob Bartlett, Jensen Miller, Daniel Showery. In varying degrees, tell me where I'm wrong. What you're thinking?
That sounds like the whole list, man. That very short list that you just read off. There are only 5 players on Sporting Kansas City's senior roster who have guaranteed deals past next season. So everybody, past this offseason. Scrub that. Their contracts are basically all up after the end of this season, which mercifully for SKC is coming very soon. It is not a long list of pieces that you want to keep, and that's why I think this position is actually a lot more attractive than a lot of people. Maybe a lot of fans around the league, a lot of Sporting Kansas City fans maybe would even appreciate. There were a lot of very qualified people that were interested in this job. A lot of very qualified people interviewed for this job.
Yep.
David Lee was not the only CSO, as far as I understand it, inside of MLS who had at least some casual interest in this stuff. This is an attractive job, and part of that is because SKC gave David Lee an elevated title, right? That's nice. Looks good on the resume. I assume he's making more money than he did before, and they're handing out almost decade long.
Very safely assume that, yeah.
Totally. And if you're handing out almost a 10-year long contract, that's a pretty attractive deal. You don't get a lot of that in this industry. At the same time, all that's true. But beyond that, this is as close to an expansion build as you get to have as a team that's not an expansion team. Other than you're tied up to 2 DPs, one of which in Joveljic I think you'd be fine to be tied to. The other in Garcia, I'm a little less thrilled about that, but I think there's something there. Everything else you get to do. You get to go and build out your game model. You get to go and make that 900 slide PowerPoint presentation that all these people like to make with the tactics and game model and what you're looking for in positional profiles. You get to hire a coach. You get to do everything. Now, the downside is you don't have a lot of time, and so this is going to take time to rebuild. I don't think this is going to be SKC nailing every single decision, swinging on everything this offseason, and going and being great next year. But they're going to be better. You better believe they're going to be better because there's no way for them to be worse. And you have all of these doors open to you. And sorry, I'm going long. You also get to build out the club. I don't think you get the interest in this position that there was without ownership being willing to do more than they've ever done before, right? That I believe very strongly. It's not just, hey, we're going to spend on the roster, which I think there is a willingness to do. Not that spending and success are correlated in MLS, but I think there's a willingness to go out and spend on the first team roster. But beyond that, let's go and spend to actually build out this club, like capital C club. There's, as far as I know, there's one scout working at Sporting Kansas City right now. Like, they don't really have a data department. There's a room for a lot of people, a lot of really smart people to be hired into this organization. And if you're David Lee, you got to be stoked at all of the control that you've just inherited and all of the security that you have long term. I think this is a really fascinating job, and I think Lee is going to be a really interesting person to watch in this club. It's going to be interesting to watch next year and beyond.
How many fiction novels did he write, though?
Not enough, man. Not enough to get the DC job. That we can say with absolute certainty.
Elsewhere around MLS, sources have told me this week that Jim Curtin is not in the running for the New England Revolution head coaching job. I'm told that that's family reasons, and what I can say is that was an innuendo for, oh my God, I talked to, like, these conversations didn't go well. From my understanding via multiple sources, like, it's a genuine thing, and so much so that I'd be surprised if he takes a job before next offseason. And I heard that pretty strongly from a couple people. So this New England job is also interesting to people. Like, that's definitely something that Jim Curtin spoke about, considered, and unfortunately can't move along in the process. I'm fairly certain he was their top target, because he probably should be for just about anybody with a coaching vacancy now. So I'm not sure where New England are going. It is still kind of early days from my understanding. Again, you go for Curtin first, and then while you're building out, okay, who else can we talk to? Who else are we going to do? Again, I keep saying Gio Salvarese's name. I don't think that there's been a formal interview kind of place or schedule. Tommy Quinlan reported that Peter Vermees was one of the names as of 2-3 days ago. I was told that was really preliminary in terms of conversation. Nothing, again, no interview has been scheduled. Again, I think that we're just going to hear a lot of names. And I don't know what the timeline would be for New England. I'm not suggesting that they're taking too long. It's just like we are still really in the beginning of this.
Yeah. And for New England, it's a totally different situation. It's a different job than the CSO job, obviously, in Kansas City. But it's also a totally different situation with the roster, right? I mean, it is, you're going to have to do something closer to a Nashville if you want to have real success next season, because you're locked into so many pieces and parts on that roster, because Caleb Porter got what he wanted, and they went out and signed a bunch of players over the last few transfer windows, and now you're sort of stuck with those pieces. So it's interesting to me that Curtin was as interested in that job as it sounds like he was, because that indicates that there's a belief on his part that he can do something with that roster, right? I mean, there's no way you touch that job if you don't feel like you can, especially if you're Jim Curtin and you have the cachet that he does. If you're a Gio or some of these other candidates, like, you probably are going to leap at almost any job that you can get. But that's an interesting bit on Curtin, that he is, like, or was really quite interested if the stars had aligned personally for him to take that job.
Yeah, I'm glad that you followed it. Like, I'm not intimating that I know for sure that that Jim Curtin would have taken that job. But like, I just want to make it as abundantly clear as possible that, like, it is fair that people read personal reasons and think like, oh my God, the refs screwed this up. What did they do? They drove him away. Like, that wasn't the case. It's kind of what I wanted to say. A couple injury points here. It sucks. Quinn Sullivan, ACL tear, out for the season. That really hurts Philly for the playoff, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough blow for them. I honestly think they've got the depth to go and survive this, to be totally honest. It hurts not just for this season, it hurts, like, in a similar way, a much reduced way, but the timeline of Ricky Puig last year of, oh man, not only do we lose him for the most important games on our season, we also lose him for almost all of next season. Like, it really, really stings. I stand by my initial take. I think Philly can deal with this. Olofsky is even more important now than he was before, because we saw him move into that left-sided 10 role from the two-striker front. Carnell moves him back when Sullivan has to come off the field, and he was good. Like, granted, they were playing DC United, so it's pretty easy to look good in that situation. But I think Philly have been savvy with their succession planning when it comes to their striker situation, in a way that also gives them a lot of flexibility personnel-wise to have someone like Olofsky come and deputize in different spots. So I think they're going to be okay. But, I mean, their trophy odds, their MLS Cup odds, definitely did take a slight hit with this injury.
Yeah, you hate to see it. Hopefully that's a smooth recovery, but probably ends his World Cup dreams, which, again, you never want it to come down to an injury. You want it to come down on the field. Another injury, Jack McGlynn underwent foot surgery. He's out for the rest of the season for Houston Dynamo. I don't know exactly what the timeline is on this injury, because the rest of the season could be 2 weeks for the Dynamo, and I'm not making a joke. I'm just saying that in a factual sense. Like, we know Sullivan's was a torn ACL. That we know what the timeline is for that. Jack McGlynn, I don't have that off the top of my head, but I do know I was told McGlynn was part of this U.S. national team roster. And then he got injured this weekend, so he had to be pulled out. So Jack McGlynn's still very much in the picture for Mauricio Pochettino. It doesn't seem to me that this is a long-term injury. I don't want to speculate on about January just because I simply haven't heard anything. There is no air quote minor surgery. It's only relative. Anytime you have to get sedated and put a knife into your foot, I don't. If it was my foot, I wouldn't be calling it minor. But yeah, Jack McGlynn's out, and again, hopefully that timeline will be revealed soon, and hopefully it's not very long.
Yeah, it sucks for him, certainly. It is encouraging to hear that he is still a part of Pochettino's plans, because when I saw the roster drop earlier today, that was one of the first things that I noticed was no Jack McGlynn, and I think he can really add something to the U.S. It adds a lot to Houston, of course, obviously. Houston have other things that they got to worry about, and I don't think having Jack McGlynn was going to be the difference between them doing something this season and not. I mean, they were already more likely than not to not make the postseason.
Right.
So maybe their season will be 2 weeks. Maybe it'll be longer. There's a lot more that needs to be done in Houston. But McGlynn, obviously, best wishes to both him and Quinn Sullivan.
It was a really nice moment on social media. Quinn Sullivan commented on McGlynn on the post of McGlynn being injured, and he said, "Want to rehab together?" Philly
cute.
kids, go back a while. So that's pretty cool. So, Joe, let's get into your biggest. Can I call it your most important MLS takes of the 2025 season, or I didn't give you a whole lot of heads up on this? So I just don't want to back you into calling it your most important ones, and then you think if you had more prep time that you would have come up with something different. But you tell me.
No. Most important. Let's just forget my most important. Just the most important MLS takeaways. Like these should be the widely accepted most important big picture takeaways of the year.
Let me be clear too. I gave you the rundown and you put it in, which is good. I haven't looked at them, and I purposely because I want to see. I want to have natural reaction. So Joe, you drive it. Go ahead with your number one.
All right, let's go.
7, whatever, however you want to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. These are not in any order because I love all my children equally. The first one that I want to toss out is it's time to update our thinking about expansion teams. San Diego FC have been so good this year. I think in the modern age of MLS, we should be thinking about expansion teams in a very different way. And I sort of almost alluded to this earlier with our Nashville conversation of, yes, building a roster is a challenge. Iterating on that roster is like an even bigger challenge as players come and want raises and you have different things that come and affect your team as you go through. I think in some ways the initial build is like one of the easier parts of setting up a soccer team. And I think San Diego have showed us that. Now, San Diego are unique, right, in that when they are building out this roster, they have help and they have Right to Dream and the influence there, and they have people from Right to Dream coming over into the preseason setup for them and helping out Mikey Varas and pointing out things and being an influence to them. San Diego are a unique case, but I think if we start to look back in the last 5-8 years of MLS expansion builds, there have been a lot of hits in there. San Diego are the hittiest of all the hits. Nailed it. Good English on my part. But they have been so good, and I, like many other people, doubted them. I think I had them as a fringe playoff team.
Me too.
This team's amazing. This team's absolutely amazing. And I think this is the last data point that I needed to update my thinking on an expansion team where you're given benefits. You have the expansion draft. You get extra allocation money. You have time to build a roster, and you don't have all the distractions of the other teams around you that they have to iterate on the roster that they've already built and play games and do all this other stuff and manage egos. You don't have to do that in the same way as an expansion team. I think it's time to start thinking about expansion as like something of an asset rather than like a detriment.
Interesting. I still think it's a hard job.
It's a hard job for sure.
A lot of us would relish like that. Like that is the dream, right? Of starting from a blank slate. I think that is interesting. And again, that I know that you're not taking anything away from like the success or how awesome it's been for San Diego. But I think that's just about us being dumb about like, whoa, we haven't seen them play together, so they probably suck.
Yeah, right. I think that's exactly the kind of thinking that I realize maybe we should all be pushing back against. Where like let's go through and look at some of the profiles of these players. I don't think San Diego got nearly enough credit for the talent that they attracted. Right? I mean, I had real concerns about how the back line would fare this year. But you go and look at like if you'd watched some Jeppe Tverskov tape, like that, it wouldn't have taken a lot of effort to go and see how good that guy is. We know how good Luca De La Torre is. We know how good Chucky Lozano and Anders Dreyer are going to be. If you look at Dreyer's profile, like there's so much to like about this team. There were questions. I'm not trying to deny that, and I'm not trying to spin my past take. I was wrong, to be clear. But I think it is time to start thinking about expansion teams as like outfits that can compete from the jump. In San Diego, to their absolute credit, have done a better job than any team in MLS history. I'm super high on them, even in the playoffs. I love what they've done. I think they're in for a lot of success both now and in the future.
I like that one. What's number 2?
All right, number 2. Ernst Tanner deserves more credit. This is something that I've argued with a number of people about. I argued about it when Jim Curtin was let go. And I have a lot of Jim Curtin stock, to be very
Yeah.
clear. I think he's a very capable MLS coach. I think this is sort of a side point. I think it would be very curious to see what a Jim Curtin-led team looks like, assuming we get that at some point in the next few years, given that he switched his approach under Ernst Tanner when it goes from Ernie Stewart to Ernst Tanner in that front office. He starts playing in a very different way. Then it sort of fades a little bit back closer to where he was before. It's interesting to see what Curtin's going to do. But you go through and look at the Philadelphia Union's success. Their success starts really when Ernst Tanner shows up. And I think we had good reason to believe, between the underlying numbers last year and Ernst Tanner's track record in MLS, we had good reason to believe that this was going to be a bounce back year for them. And again, I was too low on Philly. I mean, everybody was too low on Philly, right? I don't think anybody had them as Shield winners.
I don't think so either.
I was certainly too low on Philly. And Ernst Tanner deserves a lot of credit for the roster build, that organization, the front office, for the talent that they continue to find from areas that really nobody else in MLS is going out and having those sorts of hit rates from. Ernst Tanner, I think, has proven that he was not right to handle that situation how he did. And Tom, you know far more about that than I do. I'm not trying to justify some of the frozen personality stuff. That's difficult. But when it comes to the build in Philly, it's really good, man. And Ernst Tanner driving that ship, like, you can't do anything but look at that and say, this guy deserves some real credit, and probably more credit than most people were giving him.
Yeah, it's just a shame that the personal relationship between Ernst Tanner and Jim Curtin broke down to, like, because they worked really well together, and I thought that they complemented each other, because even the frictions that they had, I think that they filled blind spots for both of them. And yeah, they had so much success together, but Ernst Tanner is one of, if not the best sporting director in this league. It's not just doing it once. It is hard as it is to have one of the lowest payrolls and transfer fee expenditure in the league. It's hard enough to do that once, but it's possible. It is near impossible. This is probably the third iteration of this team. So you start with the Kasper Shabilko, Kai Wagner when they came in 19. Brendan Aronson breaks through, and then the team starts getting turned over. I think I'd call this the third iteration of the team. It's impossible. And you look at a lot of the players that have left, like, they've been really staunch on hey, this is our evaluation of you, and if we just disagree, maybe it's going to get a little bit contentious, but they don't block anybody from moves either. They could have tried to tell Daniel Gazdag, hey, we'll move you in the winter. We'll see it out. All right, well, you want a new contract? Okay, if Columbus is going to give it to you, fine. Train, whatever. Who cares? I know we started off the season really well, and you're like our leading scorer. I don't, whatever. Okay. Kasper Shabilko, yeah, go to Chicago, like, whatever. And then guess what? Bang, like, the next player comes in, and the next player comes in, and the next player comes in. One of the early instances where it was kind of clear, I think, to me, that Ernst Tanner was really, really good at this job was Jose Martinez. So the previous year was a really good team. Harris Medunjanin was the 6th. And Harris Medunjanin, that is a streets don't forget MLS player if I've ever seen one. He's awesome. He's really good. Well, his best qualities don't exactly fit the motto that Ernst Tanner wanted to play and what he said he was going to do when he came here. He declines the option on Medunjanin. I don't know if there was another person in the Union organization that agreed with that decision. And he was just kind of like, he was being even more collaborative then, from my understanding. And so they had, or either brought in or already had Marco Fabian. So he said, okay, fine, you sign him. I don't think we should, but whatever. I'm doing this, right? And then in preseason, it's the story I heard is just like, the sentiment was still, why did you ruin a good team? Who is this guy? Who is this random guy from Venezuela? Whatever, right? Like, you're ruining this team. I can't believe that you made this. What an awful decision. We told you. We were right. Jose Martinez plays that last game before the COVID-19 break in the 2020 season against LAFC, and he was astonishingly good. They did not hear one more criticism about Harris Medunjanin again after that. So, like, while Ernst Tanner, again, the interpersonal relationship should be better. Yeah. I think he's to the point where, like, he's like, I know I'm right. Yeah. And I'm going to do this, right? And again, I do think Jim Curtin's going to have a ton of success wherever he goes next, but it's hard not to say that Ernst Tanner, the way that he wanted to play, the way the team wanted to play, it's worked out. None of us saw them getting all the way up to first here and one hand on the shield, but yeah, he's one of the best sporting directors in this league.
Agreed. Yeah, I love that anecdote, Tom. That captures so much of that so well. Number 3, Ricky Puig should be retroactively awarded the 2024 MVP award. I believe this very strongly. And let me frame this through the lens of Gabriel Peck, a player who I think is fantastic, a player who had real interest last offseason, who still has interest from European teams. Gabriel Peck is a great player, I think. He had 16 goals last year and 12 assists last year. Amazing season. He won Newcomer of the Year, didn't he? If memory serves. He was awesome. This year, Gabriel Peck has 6 goals and has 1 assist, and his underlying numbers have cratered. That crater's name is Ricky Puig's ACL. It is so clear to me that the Galaxy's amazing attacking players, I think, are still good players, but they are not $20 million players. Gabriel Peck is not a $20 million player without Ricky Puig. And I think maybe some European teams have benefited slightly from Ricky Puig's injury and realizing that Peck is good. He's not as good as he looked before. Joseph Painsil is good. Much less likely to move for as much money, obviously, than Peck. But Painsil's good. Great. He scored a hat trick against SKC over the weekend. That's great. But these guys are not the same without Ricky Puig. Ricky Puig was the LA Galaxy last season. Ricky Puig was that MLS Cup win. I realized that. I think we all realized it at the time. To the extent at which Ricky Puig mattered for the Galaxy last year, it hadn't sunk in for me. And I really don't think it sunk in for most people, because if it had, he would have been MVP.
Yeah. I got a joke when I did like my kind of MVP breakdown in July, and like I got a text from a sporting executive. It's like, it's Ricky Puig. There's no quite like it's just so clear. Like, again, we all knew that they would take a step back. Like, we all have eyeballs. We can see how great he is. But my God, like, there's more problems for the Galaxy, but I think Ricky Puig would have papered over a decent amount of them. I don't think they'd be a cup contender this year with all the other issues, but I think they'd be in the playoffs, and that's it's astonishing how much they've missed him and how great he is, how singular he is in this league.
Yeah, 100% agree. And it's hard because you don't vote for MVP before you do vote for MVP, before MLS Cup. So we didn't really have the full picture even then. At the time, the Galaxy were not the top seed in the Western Conference. So I mean, there were things that had to happen for that to make sense. But man, every time I watch the Galaxy play this year, and I've watched them too much, it's just so clear. So that's my third one. Number 4, rebuilding in MLS does not have to take forever. And there are a lot of teams that struggle in MLS consistently and who are trying to rebuild and cannot find it. But we have a growing pile of evidence now that you can do it efficiently and you can do it really well. And Minnesota United are the most recent example of that in my mind, where Minnesota, yes, they have tailed off at a really unfortunate moment where they lose Kelvin Yeboah in the US Open Cup. They lose Carlos Harvey. Shout out Phoenix Rising legend Carlos Harvey. They've sold Tani Oluwaseyi. Like, there have been outgoings at a difficult moment for them. You can blame the calendar for that. You can blame whatever you want. But they're third in the Western Conference right now. They're a top 10 team in MLS on total points right now. They're even, I think, better than that. They might be 8th in the MLS on points, something along those lines. They're really good. And this team was not really good 2 years ago, where all of a sudden you have the regime change after Adrian Heath ends up departing the club and is let go. And you have the window that is before. You have the winter window last year. You have the summer window last year, and you have the winter window and the summer window. 4 transfer windows is all that it's taken Minnesota United to become, I think, a part of the class of MLS. Where you look at them and what they're doing right now, they have a clear way of playing. They have identified players at a really impressive level. They're doing innovative things when it comes to their organization, their scouting, and their work with American Soccer Analysis on the data side. Like, they're finding players. They're built this team into one of the better outfits in MLS. When I think about recent rebuilds in the league that teams should be modeling themselves after, I think about FC Cincinnati in 2022. I think about the LA Galaxy when Will Kuntz comes into that team. And I think about Minnesota United. Like, they are on that list for me of recent teams that have done almost everything right. If you follow the model, if you got the right people involved, and if you can find the right players, it doesn't have to take forever. Like, don't let your MLS team sell you on, oh, well, we made 9th. Like, oh, we made the playoffs. That's so great. You know, we're making progress. You can do better than that in MLS. It's possible. Minnesota are the latest example.
I like this view.
That was convincing. Thanks.
I would slightly no. Like, I think that you're right, but I think mine would be. I don't know that I would hold that as a standard, because then we're just going to fire sporting directors and head coaches every other year, essentially, and then you just get run into this cycle. Like, I think it's possible. I wouldn't put it as the rule, but you made a very convincing argument there. Like, Cincinnati before Minnesota. I will say more of these seem to, and Wilfred Nancy as well with Columbus. Not like, I think we all knew that was a good team that he was taking over, and they made some tweaks. But for the most part, again, outside of Nancy, it seems to be the transition high pressing is a pretty high floor. And I'm curious how that's going to evolve in the future, though, because if it gets to a point where everybody's doing it, then there goes the edge. And what does that do for the watchability, which doesn't matter team to team? All you care about is getting the points, and then kind of the one way that a league is being played. And like, I think about the Bundesliga, like, you see a Bundesliga, you know the style. Like, a lot of those teams play high pressing and energy, and then it's the same coaches just getting recycled into the same different teams because that's their specialty. But I do think that it is unique in MLS just because of the salary cap where you can't have a Bayern that has, there are ways to flex your spending power, but there is still a baseline for so many teams. But yeah, I find that interesting. It's just there's a growing number of really good, I think, CSOs and number twos and the edge had been like building out front offices and getting those right people, and now there's a lot of them in the league, which is a great sign of growth. But I wonder in a few years will we be thinking the same thing and thinking like, oh man, like there's a lot of good GMs and head coaches and infrastructure that are going to fall below the playoff line. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, totally agree. And I think one example, Tom, of what you're saying if you make that the standard, if we make all of a sudden skyrocketing up to third or whatever in your conference the standard for this rebuild, you end up really having a difficult. It's a high bar, right? Chicago, I think, are a good example of this, where I think they've had a really successful first year under Greg Berhalter, and they've turned around really well. We can feed in the context that the Eastern Conference is amazing, and that Chicago are on 51 points, and they're somehow still a wild card team. Like, they would be pushing for the 4th seat in the Western Conference. Like, we can feed in other context around us as to how good these teams should be. I just think if I was a fan of an MLS team, like, I don't know, let's pick St. Louis as an example. They've got a lot of things yet to be decided. If I'm a fan of St. Louis, I expect to see some real progress fairly quickly. Like, it's possible. Don't tell me it's not possible. Like, rebuilding in MLS is not like rebuilding in a lot of leagues or like trying to get better in basically any other soccer league on the planet. It is possible to do it quickly. It's not easy to do, not to minimize that. But I think we have a growing list of examples that says, hey, you can do it if you make the right decisions early on.
You won me over. I like it. I agree.
Let's go. All right. Number 5. There's a place for the dual head coach CSO role. Just to stick with that very, very quickly. This is going to be a long one.
This is an unpopular opinion. I'm with you.
So I was not hot on the Chicago Fire's decision to give so much control to Greg Berhalter. Now, I think Greg Berhalter is a really, really smart guy. And so maybe that was a bad example to sort of use as I'm against this idea of giving one person all of the control thing, because, okay, if your roster build isn't good, then you've let down yourself as the coach. And then if you're coaching, I mean, like we see it in Kansas City, right, where it can break down. And I had worries about that. And Berhalter has done a really good job. Bruce Arena, I think, has done a pretty darn good job, too, over in the Western Conference, where hasn't been probably quite as good relative to the competition that they've played as a Western Conference team as what Chicago have done. But this feels relevant around Jim Curtin right now, or who knows what other decisions are going to get made this offseason and beyond. But if, and this is the key, and I don't know actually as much about how Bruce Arena's done this in San Jose, but Berhalter was very intentional about building out a staff around him.
Yes.
Right? Where
Bruce did that too.
Brought in a lot. Okay, there you go. Right? You bring in high qualified people around you to help, and yes, you're going to have the final say on these kinds of things. But I was critical. I wrote a piece about it for Backheeled. Like, this is the Fire sort of operating in a way that MLS teams had stopped operating, and that was a little concerning given how poor they'd been for a long time. But it's worked, man. Like, I'll eat crow. I guess all these lists are just me eating crow, basically. That's everything on this list. I'm happy to eat crow. Like, it is worked for Chicago. It's worked for San Jose. And if it's the right person, I don't know how many other people there are that I think would fit in that category. But if it is the right person, and they're going to do it in a way that actually has a structure around them, go for it, man. Like, I think I was hesitant about that in a way I didn't quite need to be.
Two things. You're allowed to take your victory laps here if that happens to be coming over the last couple. But I don't think that we would have loved it if you were just like, hey, remember in preseason when I said this? I was right. That was the most important thing. Just everything else was stupid. I don't care. I was right the whole time. They just let me down. So I think that's fair, and I think it's a sign of great strength and security to be able to point out when you're wrong. And I think that gives you more credit when you have to point out when you're right. Anyway, I agree with this, Joe, and you nailed it at point by point. I don't think most teams should do this. I think few teams should do this. But in the case of the Chicago Fire, that was my whole argument. You're not getting Greg Berhalter without giving him the CSO title, one. So I think that's a worthwhile trade-off for where this club was and the circumstances there within. And two, while Berhalter likes to control a lot of details, he's been good at delegating and, to your point, building out a really good staff. Greg Broughton, he was at Blackburn. He was, I believe he was at Bodo Glimt before that. Like, he's somebody who has a lot of high-level experience in roles. And he wasn't like, the administrative assistant. Like, he was in serious decision-making powers for those clubs. And he's the number 2. They bring over Mikey Stevens from the LA Galaxy. Eddie Rock has been there for a long time. He's very well respected. I'm certain that I'm forgetting somebody in this front office. Like, the whole point is that, like, Greg Berhalter isn't negotiating every single deal. He's not, like, there's not enough time in the day, and that's kind of when you might slip on signings, and then you just start relying on agents and stuff. No. Like, they have a robust front office, and that is a non-negotiable. And two, you need to have somebody who is secure enough to delegate and trust the people around them. Bruce Arena in New England, Chris Tierney, Remy Roy, like those are a couple really good examples. Kurt Onalfo ends up getting the CSO job after Bruce leaves. Like Bruce is very collaborative, and he's doing the same thing in San Jose. Brett Carlin, Chris Leach is still there. Why am I blanking on the guy who came from Montreal? Vasily. Like that's right there. Those are 3-4 people that, like, it's not just Bruce calling agents. It's not just Bruce doing stuff. And same thing with Greg Berhalter here. So I think that is a non-negotiable if you're going to go this way. Again, Sporting Kansas City, I thought it was smart that they hire CSO and then CSO hires a head coach. But like to your point about Jim Curtin, I don't know if he's asking for that. Sure. I would be surprised if he is, but I know that he's earned a point in his career where he should be getting a strong amount of say. And if you're a team that's trying to convince Jim Curtin to come to your team, you have to give him that to have any chance to give him. And so it's a case-by-case basis where if the candidate is strong enough, and let's throw it again, hypothetically, if Pep Guardiola called Sporting Kansas City and says, I'm interested in coming, but I have to be CSO and head coach. You do.
You
don't
can't do
like,
it, Pep. Sorry,
again, dude. Listen, we got a couple guys in front of us we like a lot here. Sorry, we can't give too much control. Right? Like, the special coaches and the ones who have earned it, they should get it. It's not something that I would recommend as a baseline, but I think that there's mitigating circumstances.
Yep, love that. All right, number 6 on my list. Cashers are even more impactful than I thought they'd be. I love this rule, dude.
Me too.
The one that crystallized this for me was the Georgie trade, which I know you guys discussed. We discussed a bunch over in TSS and Backheeled as well. Like, this is that was the one for me. Gazdag a little less so, but that fits into this group. But Georgie, a mid-season acquisition for a foundational piece for a new era. With a CSO and Jason Hernandez, who's relatively new to having the actual decision-making power in Toronto, that he went out and said, hey, I want to go get one player that's already well-known inside of MLS and have him be one of my guys. Like, I don't need the ego hit of going and finding that or the ego boost, right, of going out and finding that player on my own and getting the credit for it, like Tyler Heaps gets with Dreyer, as you should, right? Like, that's an example. Right. Not to say Heaps is like an egomaniac or anything like that. Like, that's what you hear, though, with expansion teams. Like, they want to go and pick their own DPs, right? And understandable. But with Toronto going out and getting Georgie or even Gazdag for Isatal, like that being his first DP move in Columbus, is relevant. Like, that shows that this rule is going to have an impact moving forward. I firmly believe that. Now, you're really going to continue to see it primarily on prime roster spots because of the transfer fees. So you're not going to see it for, like, your middle of the roster guys. You're going to see it for your U22s and your DPs. So that does put a pretty hard cap at the moment with how MLS is constructed for how impactful that rule is going to be. But that clubs, and I know for a fact there were other teams that were sniffing around Georgie, like other cashers that were in discussions for the summer window. Like, teams are taking this seriously, and they don't feel that they have to go out and only sign players from abroad. They feel like they can go out there, and yes, they're going to pay a premium, fair enough, for these guys, but they're willing to do that. And we've seen that over and over and over again across the winter, across the summer, and that makes me so happy because it's so good. It's so juicy, Tom. It's so juicy. This has been pivotal, and so I think to your point as well, I thought that this was a seismic change, and I believe that you did too. The Georgie one was the one that made me rethink it as well, Joe. Yeah. That, like, okay, Evander, this was clear. Lucho and Cincy, this is clear. These were a couple ones where it was, these guys are going to leave. And it's great. It is really important that these guys are going to get to stay in MLS. There was a time in the winter where I didn't know if this was just agents trying to get deals done or putting leverage on teams. But, like, I just heard pick any DP number 10 in MLS that you think is halfway good. Right. I would hear somebody say, hey, I wonder if we could sign him. Or I wonder if insert this team could sign him. And I was like, why would you bother calling Nashville about Hani Mukhtar? But I would have said, why would you bother calling Philadelphia about Daniel Gazdag? Or why would you bother calling Colorado about Georgi Mihailovic? So I didn't clock that side of the importance of not just the, like, okay, when somebody's disgruntled and Evander wants to leave Portland, he gets to stay in MLS, which is great and really good for the league. I didn't think about the other way where Colorado don't want to lose Georgi Mihailovic, but Toronto want him more than that. So at the end of the day, that move's going to happen. And, man, like, that's something to look for, I think, in the future. And I'm sure that teams were ahead of this trend than I was. But I wonder if other teams were thinking, like, hindsight's easy for Atlanta United. Would they have used all 3 DP spots on Cashers? Would they have? Would they have spent $22 million on Cucho Hernandez? I have no idea if Cucho would have gone or not. But, like, in hindsight, Kind of feels like it, huh?
Just go get Evander and Cucho and
Yeah.
Santi Rodriguez, right? Like,
Yep.
why not?
Yeah, I was gonna say Evander Cucho and Pedro Musa. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
if we're talking about guys that I would think about,
Yeah.
really like calling and then maybe calling again, Pedro Musa is one of them. He's been amazing for Dallas. Who are, to their credit, Eric Quill, I think, has done a really good job in the post-Lucho era of reformatting how this team plays. They are now more Minnesota United than Minnesota when it comes to defending deep in their own third. But Musa's a name I would think about. And then David Martinez at LAFC. He's now been buried, it feels like, at least a little bit under Andrew Moran, which I don't know if Moran's going to be around next year or not. I know his contract's only through the end of this year as announced. But I do think David Martinez is legit, and Cherundolo doesn't seem to rate him. I mean, maybe he sticks around in LA because there's going to be a coaching change. Maybe he goes to Europe. I assume that's his ambition. But there are guys, like there are DBs and there are U22s that I would take a long look at and call over and over again to figure out if I could get a deal done. So that makes me very
point,
happy.
man. The U22s too, I think, is a good one. Sorry to
no, it's fine.
Like, I like Colorado's a team I think is going to be on that end. Like, I know a lot of teams like Logan Farrington, Dallas chief among them, right? Like that's not going.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, Nathan Ordaz. If you see LAFC go for another U22 guy, or Sun comes in and Belong stays, and then like if you're Nathan Ordaz, like Colorado might look pretty good. Or like I know. Like these teams are identifying players around the league.
That feels, Tom, that could not be more perfect. And maybe, I don't know, like, Ordaz just feels like a Rapids player. Like that's destined to happen. That's in the
right,
stars.
and like in a very positive way. So
yeah,
no, I love that take. I love that take. What is this, number 7?
Yeah, number 7. Closing out MLS. Tom, I don't know if you knew this. It's a 28-team league. There are actually only 28 teams in it. Because DC and Montreal don't belong. This is nothing against fans of those clubs.
Yeah,
I want to be very clear.
Honestly.
I feel bad too. Before this year, to me, there may have been some nice things about Montreal said on this show. Montreal looked hopeless from before this thing kicked off. Like I have some
agree.
Laurent Courtois stock. I have some Corey Ray stock. I think they had some smart people involved. Those people are all gone, by the way. This roster was not a serious roster when the season started. It's no surprise to me that they were one of the first teams eliminated from the postseason. They do not build serious Major League Soccer teams. They just don't, right? And that I think was pretty clear before it started, and it's pretty clear now. DC United, we've learned this year also are not a serious soccer team. And we could do, and you guys have spent plenty of time on this, and you could, if you chose to just really dig the knife in, do multiple entire episodes on DC United and all of the wild stuff that happened this year. Remember the Mateus Click thing? That was fun, wasn't it? Remember the Paul Pogba thing where they stick with that 3DP, 3U22 initiative model all year long because ownership told Alan McKay that that's what they needed to do when they really were never actually going to sign Paul Pogba? That was cool, man. Like, MLS is a 28-team league right now, and I hope that changes for these teams. I really do. Like, I hope the Saputos have like a come-to-Jesus moment. I hope that DC United's ownership has a come-to-Jesus moment because it's embarrassing, man. Like, it's actually embarrassing what the product that those two clubs have put out on the field. It's through not a lot of fault of the people that are employed by ownership there. Not that great jobs were done across the board, sporting-wise, especially at DC this year. But man, like, I don't know how you look at those teams if you're MLS and not think like, how do we fix this? Like, genuinely, Montreal maybe a little less so, because I don't know that they're as core of a market to MLS and how the league office maybe would think about things.
Montreal's a great market. It is like, and that place jumps. Like, you think about the Nacho Piatti, Didier Drogba years. Like, even the Wilfred Nancy year that should have been
totally.
a lot of years.
That
but
playoff game to have against Orlando, right, in 2022. Like, that game was awesome. Like, not to dismiss
the great
Montreal,
fans there.
But like DC especially, I think for MLS is like an important market, and I don't. It's so bad, dude. It's so bad. Like they are not trying to do the same thing that the other 28 teams in MLS are trying to do. There are a lot of teams outside of those two that are doing a bad job, to be very clear.
Right.
But those two are in a class of their own, man. In the worst way. Like it hurts. It just hurts.
Not that this is solace to anybody, but Jacksonville Jaguars could probably fit this in the NFL, and NFL's still doing all right. The Oakland Athletics in or what are they called now? The Sacramento or the just the Athletics, whatever the hell that has been. They've been a joke to the MLB. They're doing all right. So like that shouldn't stop us from trying to solve it, but it happens, I guess, unfortunately. And even if you talk about pro rel, Manchester United is still a joke in England, so they haven't gotten relegated yet. So, but
true, man.
Again, that is the best. Like I've been mean enough to these teams that I'll leave it.
Yeah, we can park it there. That's my last one. There's my top 7.
Oh, Joe, I loved that. That was delightful. I appreciate you doing that. How do you come up with this on such short notice? Again, peek behind the curtain here. I gave Joe, I don't know, 10 minutes, and I was like, hey, this is probably too soon. And he goes, 2 minutes later, he goes, "I'll be all right." 3 minutes later, "Yeah, I got it. We're good." How did you get all of those like deeply well thought and nuanced arguments?
Tom, the answer is I'm a broken man. I think about this too much, and I shouldn't. So I know you can relate to that, dude. We're in the same boat.
100%. The U.S. national team roster was released. Joe, any big picture thoughts? Tyler Adams is missing because he and his partner are expecting their first child. So I'm all for people being with the national team. I really like that Pochettino is allowing Adams to not be there for the birth of his kid. But that was the biggest name that was missing. No Gio Reyna, no Joe Scally, no Josh Sargent. I don't want to read off the roster because everyone's brain is just gonna melt. But let's see, Aronson's back, Mark McKenzie's back, Matt Freese is still there with Turner's back in goal. So we'll see kind of who gets to start in these games. Ajamong returns, Haji Wright returns, and Deas retains his place. Christian Roldan retains his place. And for me, the biggest kind of new addition, Aiden Morse, thought this was overdue. I'm really happy that he's getting to be with the team. And Joe, that's probably the player I'm most looking forward to seeing, just because I think we know a lot about a lot of the other guys. But what about you? What are a couple of your thoughts here on the roster?
Yeah, there's an opportunity at the 6 with no Adams, no Johnny Cardoso. Both of those guys unavailable. Cardoso with injury, Adams for reasons you've already mentioned. So whether that's Morris or
really
yeah,
quick,
please.
I believe Morgan Senza, chief admin, good friend. She is reporting that this is Tyler's second child. So apologies for saying first.
There you go. Good catch. Exciting times for the Adams, no doubt. I think there is an opportunity at the 6. I don't know who that's going to be. Morris, I think, has earned a look back from Pochettino, and Sands, I think, has earned a first look under Pochettino. I don't know who came in late when Jack McGlynn left late. I don't know who that was. Maybe that's in the attacking midfield group, because there's a bunch of those dudes in this team, like way more than you can probably even play across both of these games against Ecuador and Australia. For me, the top line takeaway is that Pochettino has started to cut guys from like the reasonable pool of players for the World Cup. And the 3 guys that I think are very clearly not going to be there are Josh Sargent, Yunus Musa, and Joe Scally, where this is already a window where Pochettino said he was going to potentially go a little lighter on MLS call-ups. So that does maybe explain, maybe not, but could explain no Seb Berhalter, no Luca De La Torre. But he didn't say that for the European guys. Like he was making special accommodations for the MLS postseason and in the stretch run. Yeah. Sargent, Musa, and Scally are all healthy. Like they're all playing games. Musa just played in the Champions League. Scally's been playing well for Gladbach. Sargent's been doing his thing for Norwich. They're not here. Poch doesn't rate those guys. That seems very, very clear to me.
I think Scally more than the other two.
Oh, I agree. And with Scally, it certainly seems like there was maybe some other stuff happening back in the March window where him and Gio were up to some old tricks. Like no Gio Reyna either in this group, and that's not surprising. He's injured, but Poch didn't even call him over the summer, right? Didn't even call him to see if they could get out of Dortmund, according to Doug McIntyre. So I don't think we're going to see.
I heard that as well, by the way, too.
There you go. Absolutely. But we're not. I would be shocked if we see Josh Sargent, Yunus Musa, and Joe Scally at the World Cup, barring a major run of injuries. That feels like the most notable takeaway. It's unfortunate that there are as many injuries as there are in this group. No Pepe, no Cardoso, no McGlynn, no Dest. It's a long list of guys that are not here because of fitness. But we're getting closer to this being Poch's real World Cup roster. It's a fine squad by and large, but those guys missed out, I think, are going to continue to miss out.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. And then again, I'm looking forward to this window. So they play Ecuador, they play Australia. Ecuador, I think, is going to be a really good challenge.
Yeah, totally.
Not to be disrespectful to Australia, but I'm just more looking forward to that match against Ecuador. Zendejas is another guy I'm looking forward to see. I'm glad that you said something about James Sands. Tanner Tessman, too. He's been really, really good for Lyon.
Yeah, he has.
And I'm glad that they didn't get relegated and then he had to find a new club. What would you make kind of the defensive unit? Cameron Carter-Vickers, Chris Richards, Tim Ream, Mark McKenzie, and Miles Robinson are the 5 center backs. Do you think that we're going to see 3 center backs? Do you think that is a window into their decision-making?
I think it's possible. And when you look at there being 5 center backs and 3 fullbacks, and by the way, one of those fullbacks is Anthony Robinson, who's not fully fit right now, or at least hasn't been playing 90s for Fulham. He played 10 over the weekend in the Premier League against Aston Villa for Fulham. I don't know Poch's track record with being very gentle with a lot of these guys, fitness-wise, doesn't make me think that we're going to see Jedi Robinson get 2 90s in this window. So it makes me think that there's probably a back 3 in here somewhere. I think there was a lot of overreaction from big segments of the fan base after the back 3 looked fine, like maybe even better than fine, against Japan in that second game. Poch was pretty clear that they used that as a way to simplify the game, and they went more man-oriented because Japan were also playing a 3-4-3, and the South Korea game was so bad defensively that they felt like they had to adjust. I think everybody sort of came out of the game thinking, oh, wow, the U.S. is a back 3 team now. Poch has hedged against that in multiple interviews since then and talked about how they want to have flexibility to do multiple things.
Yeah.
Maybe use blowing smoke, and they are a back three team. But I look at this team, and it's very possible that we see that in this window. I think the center back pool is very clearly Ream and Richards plus however many guys Poch wants to bring, whether that's 2 players or 3. Last window, it was Blackman and Banks that came in. Blackman's obviously hurt right now. We talked about that earlier. But CCV, McKenzie, and Robinson are all back in this team. They've all been in under Poch before. He's clearly not enamored with any of the guys that are not named Reamer or Richards. And then at fullback, I think Arston is very much one of his guys. Like, he'll be at the World Cup. And Alex Freeman seems to be as well. Freeman's going to get a bunch of minutes in this window. Maybe we see Tim Weah slide back and play some right wing back. He's been doing outside back stuff for Marseille. Yeah. Poch wasn't very pleased that he hasn't been playing as a winger for Marseille after the last window. He talked about that. Was a bit frustrated. Maybe he's going to bend and put Weah in an outside back spot. I don't know what this looks like, but it's Ream and Richards plus some question marks, at least in the middle of the back line right now.
I would agree. Hopefully we get some answers to that. Looking forward to it for the 2 games for the U.S. men's national team. Obviously, Canada are playing as well. Should be a fun window. All these games are getting one step closer to the 2026 World Cup. But Joe Lowery, thank you so very much for joining us. You are the man. Love spending time and talking to you. Everybody, I hope that you know about Backheeled. I'm sure you do if you're listening to the show. But again, please subscribe to Backheeled. Read what Joe does at Backheeled, and I don't know, anything that ends in .com. You could also maybe find some of Joe's work at Joe's Thoughts. Listen to Total Soccer Show. If you're in the area, watch Phoenix Rising, and you get to hear that lovely voice on the broadcast.
Tom, thanks. Checks in the mail, dude.
All right, everybody, that'll do it for today. We'll be back next week. I believe David Goss will be back unless that he needs more time to atone for his sins, which very, very possible. But to use David Goss's line, we'll talk to you all very, very soon.